Yeah, I mean, when we say keep rolling under fire, we definitely mean keep rolling while running. And you can see the cameraman doing exactly that. I mean, I was with a particularly experienced team there. The cameraman and editor, Duncan Stone, is a BBC veteran. He's been working for the BBC longer than myself, more than 30 years. In situations like that, we would have a safety advisor with us, and we had one on that day, and you would have heard him on the footage yelling, "Duncan, get in the car." That was our safety advisor. And his job is very much in those moments when we are still thinking about the filming and the storytelling and grabbing information. The job of the safety advisor is to be thinking about none of that, to be thinking about getting the team into a vehicle and getting them away, which is exactly what happened in that situation. So we pulled back to a safe distance and we carried on working. One of the most underreported in the world is definitely Yemen, which is regarded now by aid agencies as one of the most grave humanitarian situations anywhere. It's a story that you don't hear enough about because we and other organisations faced tremendous hurdles in trying to get in. When I went first to Yemen, when the Saudi-led coalition had begun a bombing campaign, the only way in at that stage was by sea, and we travelled from Aden. It took 23 hours. We and other organisations are facing tremendous difficulty in telling the story of what's happening to the people of Yemen, and the numbers are absolutely staggering. The United Nations says more than 10,000 have been killed since the conflict began. About 2 million people have been displaced, and now the worst cholera epidemic in the world is taking place in Yemen, and more than 600,000 cases, and the fear is that that number could reach to 1 million. So there are so many stories that really need to be told in Yemen, which was already the Arab world's poorest country before this conflict began. But it is extremely difficult, and I would say extremely expensive for media organisations, including our own, to try to get to that story. But we and others are very committed to trying to tell it. I mean, I think we're always focused very much on why we're there, and our job is to go and tell the story as best we can, and we are seeing people and meeting people at times of great suffering and loss for them, and we are asking them to tell their stories to us. And it's been my experience over the years that in many cases people do want to talk, and they actually want the outside world to know what's going on. But, you know, obviously that has to be their choice. And when you are very focused on the work and on the deadlines, in a way, I think that gives you a bit of insulation. You have to stick with that. You can't really get lost in what you're seeing. I mean, equally, I think if you weren't affected by the kind of stories that we often go and do, and if you didn't care about what you were seeing, then you shouldn't go anymore. I think you have to be very, very conscious of the fact that you are dealing with real people in a dire situation, and you have to remember that while also trying to gather the information, get the pictures, and tell the story. And I do think the deadline pressure, in a way, it can be a positive thing. It means you have to just get through it. I think, you know, there is an emotional cost to doing this job, there's no doubt about that, but I think also there is usually great kind of team spirit and camaraderie on the road, and people would tend to keep in touch and talk to colleagues who have been there about what they've seen and what went on, and I think that's quite a good thing to do.